Welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call happening every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Today is March 18th. My name is Ayça Baş and I'm a principal product manager at Microsoft, focusing on community, open source, and all of these areas. Today, I'll be your host, and we have an awesome setup of demos coming up. But before we go to the actual demos of today, we'll do a quick recap on all of the different updates and news and assets which are available for you to get started on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. Depending on what you're doing, the better together is always a good thing to think about as well. So there's so much we can do together with M365 Power Platform and Azure and all of that technology as well. Now, today, as I said, we're going to go recapping all of the assets which are there available for you to get started, all of the events, all of the new latest patches and all of that stuff which is available for you to gain. And then we go to the actual stars of the day. Today we have two really cool demos which are coming from Ayça around create your own custom engine agent with Microsoft Teams Toolkit. And then April is going to do getting started on creating autonomous agents with Copilot Studio. Super popular topic, hitting the right sweet spot on those terminology for sure. People want to know, wait, what is an autonomous agent? And April is going to share all of that within his presentation, which will be awesome. Now, before we go to those demos and before we go all of that demo sections, we will start with a quick recap on all of the assets and URLs and things which are available for you to get started on Microsoft 365 and in cloud. These community calls, a lot of other videos, a lot of guidance videos are getting published at Microsoft Community Learning Videos YouTube channel. We publish up to 15 videos every single week on that one, which is actually against YouTube algorithms, and you're not optimized. But guess what? We don't want to optimize. We want to share guidance. We want to share videos. We want to and celebrate the community who are doing demos with us within the community calls as well. So we don't really care about the optimization. We care about sharing content and information on the channel. We do have our LinkedIn page and group for discussions and updates. There's a lot of open source assets available also in GitHub, but as it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you, we also have these sample galleries across different functionalities, which will make it easier for you to find the relevant sample which you're looking for. There is a lot of URLs to remember. There's one URL. Well, nowadays on the page, there's two URLs, but you can use either one of them, AKMS Community Home or community.ms. It will be redirecting to the same location where you can find all of the details around our open source and community assets. Now, we do have quite a lot of these community calls. This is the Tuesday 8 a.m. community call with Microsoft speakers. So really hearing from the Microsoft engineers and product managers and cloud advocates on the latest on getting started and building capabilities on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. On top of that, we do have Power Platform monthly community call happening actually tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Really cool call as well. And that's mainly with community demos. So community sharing what they're using Power Platform for and sharing those as part of the live demos within the call. And then we have the Office Standards community call happening monthly, which is more about more about Microsoft employees. And then we have our 7 a.m. Pacific time series. Normally 7 a.m. Pacific time series. Right now we're in this weird twilight zone almost feeling, but typically 7 a.m. every single Thursday. It's Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call or Viva Connection and SharePoint Framework community call. Now, if you go to the AKMS community calls URL or you click any of those URLs directly within the slide, which are shared also in the chat, you can download the recurrent invite. We will be having this call based on those recurrent invites. So there are certain exceptions throughout the year as the daylight savings are moving across the world in a different sequence, which might cause a bit of a confusion. Right now, for example, today, this call might look normal for US-based people, but this call is 1 hour earlier for anybody who's in Europe or anybody which country does not do summertime. And that's because the US already moved to summertime. Europe hasn't moved to summertime. Europe moves to summertime in 2 weeks. Anyway, AKMS Community Meetup is also a great location to get access and downloading and getting access on latest agendas on all of these calls. So you can always go there and have a look on updates. You can actually subscribe with your email, and you will get an email on whenever there is an agenda updates for any of these calls. Super convenient service. Now, on many of those calls, we do welcome community presenters. This is the way to actually do that. If you're volunteering to do that, is to go AKMS Community Request Demo. It doesn't have to be rocket science. We're not looking into, it doesn't have to be even open source. It's all about sharing your learnings around, for example, getting started on Microsoft products. And doesn't have to be super deep dive on advanced capabilities. Everybody has a story to tell. Super important thing to remember. Now, only thing is we do not welcome product demos here, so you cannot actually use these calls for selling your products, and that would be something else which we don't want to have as a community asset. So other than that, AKMS Community Request Demo is the location to sign up for those. Now, getting started with assets on Microsoft Cloud, we have a lot of learning material available at learn.microsoft.com. A lot of modules from M365, a lot of modules for Power Platform. Please do check out those great assets to get started on learning new capabilities in everywhere in Microsoft Cloud. On top of that, we do have a lot of samples available from Microsoft and from community in a one centralized location. So this is pretty unique. We are aggregating all of the samples within a GitHub from Microsoft repos and from the community repos to one centralized location, making it super easy for you to find them. So rather than the sample getting, hidden in the abyss of GitHub and repos and all of that stuff, you can go to this AKMS community samples location and voila, poof, you can easily find the relevant sample for you. Or if you're looking into getting unblocked or getting inspiration on building something, you don't want to miss that location. So please do check out there. We are getting new samples all the time. Now, we do have, when you find the sample, you might be also wondering, wait a minute, so I have a sample, how would I now get started? Or maybe you have a sample you want to contribute back to the community with your sample, and that's where our Sharing is Caring initiative is going to help. And directly from LA Studios, David Warner is going to recap what is this all about.
Yes, thank you, Vesa, live from Los Angeles. So everybody, what is Sharing is Caring? It is awesome. It is your gateway to using the samples, as Vesa said, or contributing to them. These are live sessions that we join together and walk through how to accomplish just that. So if you're intimidated by that hub of Gits, that GitHub hubs, that confusing labyrinth of open source, fear no more. We are here to support you. We just had a session last week. It was fantastic. Friends have said that they now are demystified, and so we want you to take advantage of that. We're going to have new sessions scheduled soon. In fact, we're going to have a couple of short notice sessions, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because we want to enable you all to be able to use your, inner force, maybe. Now, these are live. They are working together. They are not recorded, though. So that means you don't have to be fearful of asking any questions that are going to go on record thinking, well, does everybody know the answer to this? Maybe I shouldn't ask because I think everybody else must know because they're not asking. And then you've gotten in your head, and we all do that. We want you to feel safe. It is a great opportunity to learn together. So be on the lookout, ak.ms/sharing is caring. We're going to have a couple sessions coming up soon. And of course, once you contribute, I mentioned that opportunity, that force you all have within you. Our recognition program is going to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing. We've had a ton of new badges coming out that are fun, things like Prompt Pro. We've got the event badges for events that just wrapped up, like the Powerful Devs, the SharePoint Hackathon, Repo Rescuer is in process right now, Modern Search, and then the newest May the 4th themed badges are ready to go. Looks like there they go. They're coming in as dramatic pause. We've got 3 new badges for everyone to chase. These are going to be available over 3 full months. So it's the months that surround May, April, May, and June. May the open source be with you. The fork awakens, rise of the contributor. All you need to do is contribute 1 to get 1, 3 to get 2 of them, and 5 to get all 3 of them. And that's over the course of 5 months. And by the way, when you join a Sharing is Caring session and you make a contribution, guess what? That's a contribution. So you're going to get your first one just by joining one of those sessions. Help me, GitHub. You're my only hope. That's right. We're going to work with GitHub. You're going to be rewarded. These are fun. These are awesome. But they also do show that you're making a difference. They are credited on Credly. And they're absolutely free. We cover the cost. We do need you just to opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition. We'll connect your email to your GitHub account, and then we will reward you. So reach out if you have any questions. Be on the lookout. We're going to be socializing these even more. They just released last week. We're super excited. More to come later in the year of thematic campaigns like this, and it would not be possible without all the contributions that you're all making. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Back to you in the Finland studios.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. I really need to start speeding up my speaking speed because you actually, no, I can't do that.
I'm like Tommy boy, right?
I'm so excited as well. It's really, really cool. So this is brilliant stuff. So looking forward on getting people involved. So thank you, David, on that one. Cool. Anyway, so let's do a quick recap on all of the different events which are upcoming within this year. So first of all, Microsoft 365 Community Conference is coming up on early May, on May 6th to 8th. David will be there. I will be there. A lot of MVPs will be there. Speakers will be there. Jeff Deeper will be there. Leaders of Microsoft will be there. So a lot of opportunity for engaging with the community on that particular conference as well. So really great opportunity there. We have Build coming up on at May 19th to 22nd. This is both online and in Seattle option, so you don't have to actually travel to Seattle to be able to see most of the sessions at the buildmicrosoft.com. Do check out that URL. We also have the European Collaboration Summit coming up on 2025, which is actually 3 conferences together. So European Collaboration Summit 2025, European AI and Cloud Summit 2025, and European BizApp Summit 2025. And this is happening in Düsseldorf, 26th to 28th of May, and it will have more than 3,000 attendees, which is awesome. So a lot of people on that one as well. Now, there's also the TechCon 365 coming soon on that side of the pond, on the US side of the pond, with Seattle, Atlanta, and Dallas, starting from Seattle on June 23rd to 27th, 2025. Great opportunity also to stay up to date on what's happening within the community. Then a bit later in the autumn, we have the Power Platform Community Conference coming up in October 28th to 13th, and that's happening in Las Vegas MGM Grand, like the earlier M365 Community Conference as well. And then Ignite is coming up on the week of November 17th. Not a lot of details on this one yet, except the location. So this is actually happening this time in San Francisco, California. Great venue. I've been there, actually. I can't remember, 2018 maybe. When Build was actually in San Francisco. So it should be really cool. And it's a beautiful city, a lot of things to see and do on the surroundings as well. But more details on that one at ignite@microsoft.com. And then the last but not the least, we have ESBC Dublin coming up on this side of the pond, as in Europe side of the pond, on 1st to 4th of December. And that's this year, ESBC is happening in Dublin. And right now there is still an ongoing limited 50% offer, not on the first 50 tickets. I need to update that one, but there's a 50% off because of the 50 years of Microsoft celebration going on with the ESBC right now. So do check out that one from the SharePointEurope.com address. Now, before we then go to the actual stars of the day and the group photo, which is coming up pretty soon, to get a picture of the photo, we wanted to remind you on the communitydays.org, great opportunity also to see all of the different events all around the world on different topics, New Zealand, Toronto, France, and so many other locations to meet up with the community. So please check out all of the events at communitydays.org. This week, we did have a nice set of news all around the different topics: Copilot, Power Platform, Copilot Studio. So please do check out the links in the chat if you're interested on checking out the latest from Microsoft's side. And I guess then it's time to go to the actual group photo. So let me actually do a quick over. Oh, before we go there, how am I working too fast? So Copilot prompts, first of all, just a recap on that one as well, and announcing the prompt of the week. So Copilot prompt is something where we are collecting different prompts across the different Copilot capabilities in Microsoft Copilot Studio, Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365, and all of that. And we do welcome your contributions here as well. AKMS PMP Prompt Library is the location. And every single week, we do acknowledge the prompt of the week. And this time it's coming from Robin de la Bourgis, and I do apologize on pronunciation, but it's a great summary prompt on getting the recent emails based on certain conditions and getting that actually in a format. So making the Copilot actually aggregate information and formatting the output based on your need as well. So really cool prompt from Robin as well. But then it is time for the Together Mode picture. So let me actually align this a bit going here. Let me put my camera on as well. And let me adjust. Nope, I want to actually change the seats. We want to go to the green one. Green is good. And let me actually start Camtasia here. So we can actually get that one recorded. One more second. There we go. Camtasia is pretty soon here. So we do have 50 seats in the room. If you enable the camera, you should be popping in there. Am I already there? I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm not in the picture. What's happening? Oh, there I am. Okay. waving enough so I can find myself in the screen. Okay, so we do have 50 seats in the room. Let's wait a few more seconds before we start recording. If somebody wants to enable still their camera, we're running out of time. 3, 2, 1. I will put the recording on. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Let's do some hand waving, everybody. We will capture a key animation out of this and share it in the social media. So thank you for joining once again on the weekly community calls. Brilliant to have you here. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you for being part of the community. So thank you, everybody. Really cool. Thank you for that. We'll share that in the social media. Now, then it is time to go to the actual stars of the day. So today we will start with Ayça Baş talking about the custom engine agents. So what is that all about? And then we transition to April to talk about autonomous agents. So it is an agentic day, isn't it? Right, Ayça?
Yes, exactly. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you fine. All good.
Okay, awesome. I also had an issue last minute. It always happens during the community calls. I don't know what it is, but I always have either mic issue or the camera issue. Anyways, thanks everyone for joining. Let me quickly start presenting. Just one second. I'm trying to
no worries.
Figure out the logistics.
We're really nicely on the schedule, so we don't need to rush because we do have 2 demos. So take your time, no rush.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, I can see the screen. That is all good. Take it away.
Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Ayça Baş. I'm Cloud Developer Advocate at Microsoft. And as Vesa mentioned in the session, we will talk about creating your first custom engine agents with Microsoft Teams Toolkit. This session is a part of Copilot Developer Camp. If you haven't heard of Copilot Developer Camp, I'll show you in a second, but it is a pack of videos and hands-on labs for you to get started building Copilot agents. And our target audience is professional developers and also makers. We have content for both pro code developers and also if you are already experienced in Power Platform, Copilot Studio, then we also have content for you. So there are multi-pathways, but in today's session, we will actually focus on custom engine agents. Custom engine agents in our entire Copilot Developer Camp is the most custom one, as you can tell from the name. And these are the agents that works on Microsoft 365 ecosystem, but they are built using Azure AI Foundry, any model you want, and you can actually bring any orchestrator you want as well. And if you're interested, I will, in this session particularly, I will walk you through the prerequisites of building custom engine agents, and then we will build the very first one in the session too. Okay, that was the whole PowerPoint I had today, and now we will dive into the Copilot Developer Camp. So if you go to Copilot Developer Camp, we have a bunch of video series available for you, and we also had live stream that you might find it helpful. And in this session particularly, we will focus on build path, which we have the build a custom engine agent session. So these labs, if you follow, you will build a production-ready custom engine agent called Career Genie, which is powered by Azure OpenAI, and we will build one of the deployment models using AI Foundry, and then you can integrate Azure AI Search for RAG. You can adjust and change the user experience. You can add single sign-on authentication, and finally you can add actions for handling complex tasks. In today's session, I will actually show you how you can get started. So this is basically the step 0 and step 1, but we will have more coming. So every other week, I will be here to talk about B2, B3, B4, and B5, and we will basically build all of them together. In the end of these series, you will have Career Genie working in your own machine. Okay, so when we get started with the prerequisites, it's pretty similar to what Bob showed you last week, and he showed the prerequisites for Extend Pathway. It is pretty similar setup because we all use Teams Toolkit for building agents. To start with, we need to enable Teams custom application uploads. And to do that, if you go to admin.microsoft.com, you will see under the Show All section, there is Microsoft Teams Admin Center. If you go there and select set up policies. The only thing you have to do is enable upload custom apps, and you will be able to test your apps and deploy your apps to Microsoft Teams. And we will also need Teams Toolkit. If you use Teams Toolkit before, you know that Teams Toolkit is an extension in Visual Studio Code, and we are basically using that extension to be able to build agents for our ecosystem. And finally, you need to install Node.js. And to do that, you can just follow this link, and you can download either 18 or 16 that are supported for our agent system. And Teams Toolkit, I think I covered Visual Studio Code part in Teams Toolkit, but vice versa, you need Visual Studio Code and Teams Toolkit together. And after you installed all for this labs in particular, for custom engine agents, you will need Azure subscription. And if you don't have Azure subscription, you can get a free one starting today. And to be able to create the free Azure account, you can just follow these steps. There is an activation here for, I think this is for 30 days, and you will be able to test these labs after completing these steps. And after having all these prerequisites, we are now ready to start with the first custom engine agent. So let's remember what was custom engine agents. Custom engine agents are the agents that we can use. We can basically build using Azure AI Foundry, and we can bring any orchestrator we want. In these labs, we're using Teams AI Library and orchestrator behind the AI library, and we are using Azure OpenAI. So the scenario is pretty simple. We actually build a character agent called Career Genie, which helps with the HR queries of the users. So in this case, our HR team is probably asking questions like, can you help me write a job post, et cetera, et cetera. And the scenarios this agent handles gets more complex and complicated throughout these labs. But because we're in the very first lab, it is pretty simple. So in the first exercise, what we're going to do is we will go to Azure OpenAI. We will go to Azure first, and then we will create Azure OpenAI service. Okay, so I already did that. Let me zoom in a little bit so it's easier for you. I already created Azure OpenAI. Don't ask me why Sweden Central, but there was one service I was trying to get it through, and it was only working in Sweden Central. So whichever service you're working with the AI Foundry, you need to make sure that it is working in that region too. That was one of the reasons why I created this in Sweden. But let's quickly go to the AI Foundry and find out how we can create the deployment model. To be able to use the OpenAI model, we actually need to create a deployment model underneath the service. And for today, we will be using GPT-4o, but there are benefits to many other deployment models. For example, so far I have GPT-4, 4o Mini, and I also have text embedding Ada. So these all have their own benefits, but in today's exercise, we will particularly use GPT-4o. And I'll select this and confirm. So now, couple of important points here. The deployment type, we usually recommend global standard and standard if you're not in production ready environment. And to be able to customize this, first of all, the version of your model is pretty important. Second of all, the token per minute. So if you increase and decrease this, your limitation from the agent will change. So if you increase this, your agent will be able to answer, let's say, more questions. If you decrease this, you will hit your limitation pretty early in the conversation. So I'm just gonna move this slide this on the top, and then create my GPT-4o model. And after that, let's try this in the playground before we jump into building a custom engine agent. As you can see, we are basically using the chat playground. I'll select GPT-4o, the one we've created. And how do we test this? I can either basically put instructions here, or what we can do is we can go to prompt samples, and there are a bunch of samples available here already. So for example, I can select Shakespearean writing assistant, which is definitely not one of my talents, so it can definitely help me write stuff more like a Shakespearean style. And I can use my GPT-4o model and I can test out how this experience looks like. So let's ask something like, tell me about Istanbul. And now the response will be affected by the instructions we give and the examples we give to our model. That means that now the Istanbul is basically explained in a way that the basically Shakespearean style. So everything changes when you basically change the instructions. You're giving behavior to your model. But in the next step, what we're going to do is we will be bringing this custom experience into Microsoft Teams. Okay, so let me quickly show you where we are in our exercises. So we created a deployment model, we tested the Shakespearean experience. Now it's time to create custom engine agent. And my purpose is basically, if I can click to that, see. Okay, I think I'm clicking the Teams share icon. Let me reshare my desktop. Okay. So the idea is to go to my deployments, GPT-4o, bringing this GPT-4o experience into my Teams custom engine agent. Okay, so a couple of tips here. If you go to deployments and select your own model, you will be able to find out the language SDK and different types of integrations available. Plus, you can get your endpoint and key right from here as well. Okay, I have my Teams Toolkit already installed and Visual Studio Code already installed. So today what we are going to create is not an agent, but custom engine agent. So we will go with basic AI chatbot, but there are multiple options available here. I want to tap into what are the differences. The basic AI chatbot has an integration with Teams AI library, but it doesn't have a complex integration behind the scene. It's just giving you the how AI agent thinks, and it's giving you the consideration behind the model, nothing more. Chat with your data brings us the integration with Azure AI search, where you can bring your data in. An AI agent gives us some of the actions, let's say task-based actions. It's already integrated in this template. So if you want to integrate, let's say, creating lists, adding lists, etc., you can get started with this template. Today, we're going to start with basic AI chatbot, and we will implement all these features in the next exercises. So I will select Azure OpenAI. And next step for me is basically taking my key from here and pasting here. And my open, okay, what I want to do is I will actually, so another tip, I just need this URL, not the entire endpoint, because Teams AI library is handling all this behind the scene. And my deployment model is GPT-4o. I can select the default and see a custom engine agent, comment calls, and my agent template is scaffolded. Okay, let's quickly have a look what is here. So under the source folder, we have app folder. In app.ts, we have all the integrations from Teams AI library. That means that includes model with Azure OpenAI model. So we are actually using the OpenAI key, deployment name, and endpoint here. Another important part that Teams AI library brings us is the prompts. So prompt manager handles all the prompts under the prompt folder. So today we are using prompt folder. There's a chat folder underneath that is our default prompt. In the config.json, you will see all the setup for our model, and in the prompt.txt, this is the place where we actually give behavior to our agent. Just like in the chat playground where we define instructions, this is the place we also have to define the instructions. So in the Copilot camp, we actually have customized prompt to test this app. I will copy this quickly and paste it here. Okay, let's have a look. What is the characteristics of our agent? So you're a career specialist named Career Genie that helps human resources team with writing job posts. You're friendly, professional, and all use emojis. You're excited, introduce yourself first, etc., etc. So we are basically giving all these details to the agent, so it will behave as it was shared in the prompt. Let's go back to app.ts, and I will quickly run this app before I close out. Finally, we have the storage, and we're using memory storage. This is not recommended for the production purposes, but this is for the demo purpose. And the most important part is our application. So application is the app we are interacting with our AI model. Our AI model is defined, and it's coming from Azure OpenAI. And all the setup is coming from the planner, and everything is basically handled in the planner. So when I say everything is handled in planner is the place where I define model, prompts, and also the default prompt. So when you look back to our model, you will see that all the integration with Azure OpenAI model is handled here. And the second most important thing is all the prompts, which is available under the chat folder today, is also handled under the planner. So if I quickly test this in the test tool today, I should be able to see the behavior right away from our agent. And in the next exercises, we will be continue testing Career Genie, but moving forward in the next steps, like exercise 2, 3, 4, 5, we will be testing all this in Teams. And if you're lucky enough, and if this service is available in Copilot in the future, we will be also testing Career Genie in Copilot Chat too, which was announced as private preview, but I'm assuming it will be public preview soon as well. Okay, I hope it doesn't take so long. And now we are deploying our agent in a couple of minutes. After testing this, we should be good to hand this over to April. Okay, let's say hi. And if you haven't worked with app test tool before, this is the environment that is mimicking Teams. That means that you don't have to deploy the entire experience of Teams. You don't have to create Teams app ID, bot ID, etc. So everything is basically handled in this local environment where you're basically getting the mimic experience of the AI agent. Okay, so let's see the response. So the response is saying, hi there, very friendly using emojis. I'm Career Genie, your friendly expert in crafting top-notch job posts for human resources. This looks pretty nice to me, so I can ask, okay, can you help me write a job post for .NET developer position that requires 8+ years of experience. Let's see if we get a good job post. And as you can see, and I will dive deeper in the next sessions, this agent is already using streaming. That means that we are not sharing everything in one go, but whatever we are getting from the model, we are getting step by step. Okay, and finally, this is the job post we've got for .NET developer, 8+ years. It updated the name as senior, and it gave me a really nice template to get started. So you tell me in the chat if this is a good job post or not. And quickly, before I close out, I want to show you how the streaming experience looks like. So when streaming is enabled for your agent, that means that you're getting not one single answer, but all of the answers step by step. So if you see the chunks here, this is giving you answers in every second. So it's just like the human experience. You are not preparing your paragraph or answer after thinking a couple of minutes. Instead, you're giving your answer step by step into chunks. So we will dive deeper more in the next sessions, and I will be here in the next 30 minutes to answer your questions in the chat. Thank you so much for having me, and I will hand over to April.
Excellent, thank you. Awesome work, Ayça. Really, really cool. And like Ayça said, this is a long series. This was a quick intro. We will have more details coming up throughout the spring. Please use the chat for any questions. We do have more than 250 people in the room, so that's good for the questions. And April, I think we should have enough time for you to really kind of walk through this one in not rushing mode, right, April?
Good, yeah, plenty of time to walk through this. That was a great demo. Thank you, Ayça, and a really good precursor to what I'm going to be talking about in the spectrum of agents. So we're going to be covering how to build autonomous agents with Copilot Studio. So first of all, let's level set on the type of agents that we build and where autonomous agents fit in. So what you just saw Ayça demo was an example of a conversational-based agent. So these conversational agents can be retrieval agents that get information from grounded data. They can reason and summarize over your data and answer questions, or they could be task-based, so we could have them automate certain things and perform actions for us. But the other type of agent that we have is an autonomous agent, and these are unique in that they can operate independently. They don't need us to interact within a chat to be able to get what we need out of the agent. They can operate independently. And how does that work, and kind of what's the key difference? Well, an analogy that I like to use to describe conversational versus autonomous agents is conversational agents are like using GPS in your car. You tell it where you want to go, and it will navigate accordingly, and you need to keep interacting with it to really make it useful. Autonomous agents are kind of like using a self-driving car. Once it knows its destination, it makes those decisions independently, and there's no input needed from you. So what are the building blocks then of an autonomous agent? How do they actually work behind the scenes? Well, the main thing that separates an autonomous agent from a conversational agent is the trigger. So this is what tells your agent what it should do, what should kick it off, and then it can go and perform all the actions leveraging the knowledge that you provided, whether that be public website information or information on your SharePoint sites, files that you upload. Then it can perform actions that you define as well that you want it to do, like listing devices from ServiceNow, going and actually performing steps in Power Automate via a flow. And then it uses the instructions that you provided to know exactly what to do when and what actions to use, what knowledge to use. So these are kind of the building blocks of what makes an autonomous agent autonomous, with the key really being the trigger. So these are what allow your agents to run autonomously, and they activate based off of events that are external to your agent. These are actually accessed via Power Platform connectors. So when you use a trigger in your Copilot Studio autonomous agent, that is actually a one-to-one mapping with the connectors that we have in the Power Platform ecosystem. So each connector that we have for all these different services has not only actions that you can perform with that connector, but triggers that can kick off based off of events in that data source. So we'll take a look at kind of how that relationship works when we get into the demo here, which is a really good segue over to the demo portion. Now, to walk through this, I actually have already built an autonomous agent, and I'm going to dissect what I did and how that works and how it looks different from just a normal agent. So we know we can go and build an agent in Copilot Studio here with going to the crate, going to new agent, and we have either this conversational approach where we can ask questions and answer questions back and forth, or we can skip to configure and we can build out an agent. So the process to build an autonomous agent is the exact same as far as these steps go to building a normal conversational agent that we might have. So I just went through those steps. And I'm creating an agent to help automate a piece of my new employee onboarding process. So the goal here is I'm actually using a SharePoint list to put in the names of new employees once they're ready and their email addresses and their departments. And I want this to be what kicks off my process. So once a new employee is here, that's our note that they're ready to get started. And then we need to schedule some required trainings for the employee and help to procure them a new device. So I have a few data sources here. This is what I want to be my trigger, but we also have this data source where we want to be able to point it to the devices listed here for different Microsoft Surface devices to procure. And then we also have information as well that we want to get for the meetings, which let me get that pulled up. This is just a Word doc that I'll be uploading for trainings. So it's a table, and each training has a day of the week, a cadence, duration, and then there's different trainings required for different departments. So for this, we'll see how this all kind of ties together. So just like building out a normal agent, we can scroll down here and we can add knowledge. So that's one of the first things I did was I went and uploaded that IT training document and pointed that and just uploaded that as a file that it can reference of all the trainings that they need to be able to pull from. And then I have business devices. This just points to this Microsoft Surface website here where it can browse all of the devices that we have available. So I've equipped my agent with the knowledge of the data that I want it to be able to get. And then I've also added actions. So that's another thing that we can do where we can make our agent smarter and actually work for us to do things like pull information from different databases, but also write information to databases. So one of the things I want it to do is to actually create a hardware request item. So if we look at that, this is an action, and all of these actions, again, map directly to the Power Platform connectors that we have. So I just added the create an item SharePoint connector here. And then here I can define the inputs and the outputs. So this is key when you're working with actions inside of your autonomous agents. Since we want it to run autonomously, we need to be able to rely on it handling and the inputs for here dynamically, basically by itself. So when you look at performing and adding your actions, you can do some things where you have this property here. How should this be filled out as set as value? So you might hard code, obviously, the SharePoint site and the actual list where you want to be able to write this to. But there's things that you want to fill out dynamically. So what we can do is we can click add, and this will show us all of the different columns that we have in this particular list. And we can do a mapping to tell the agent how it should fill out those individual values. So that's what you'll see is what I did here. So for the title, I chose to have this dynamically fill in with the best option. And the important thing is right here in this description. So what I'm asking it to do is fill with the manufacturer name of the device from the business devices knowledge source of Microsoft Business Devices. So I'm telling the agent how to dynamically fill this in based off of the data sources that I have. So this is what's really important, is it's going to come down to providing very clear instructions, not only in the instructions section, which I'll show you in a minute, but also here in the inputs that we want to fill dynamically. So I went and I did this same thing for all of the columns that I have in that list. So for model, I'm wanting it to fill in with the model. Cost, I'm specifying that. Description, this is another thing. We can get a little bit more fancy and not just do a one-to-one mapping. It's a multi-line of text field. So I can say fill this with additional details such as RAM, hard drive, screen size, and things like that. And then our recipients, this is where I'm actually asking it to fill with the name of the user from the trigger. So notice when I'm referencing these two, just a few tips and tricks, I'm putting in single quotes the name of either the trigger or the knowledge source or the action that I'm referencing. That just tells it a little bit more specifically where it should be getting that information from. And then I can even have it do some fun things for me. So one of the columns that we have in that list is an asset tag column. So I can have it randomly fill a 6-digit asset tag starting with the letters asset hyphen, right? And it can do that for me and create auto-generated numbers. So these are the type of things that we can do just with our descriptions and have it automatically, dynamically fill those in. So that's one action that we have, but let's go back and we'll look at another one. So you'll notice right here, I have this new onboarding training. So we can not only reference connectors, but we can go and have this execute flows for us as well. So you can create a flow, which is what I did here. So let's click on this and I'll actually open up the flow in the back end and we can see what's going on. It's a really simple one. I'm just running a flow. So when you create a flow from your agent like this, it's going to give you a trigger of run a flow from Copilot, and you can have individual parameters. So if you want to pass information from your agent, in this case, you can just map those, like your email address, the start time, and the training title, because this is for actually scheduling the training in Teams. And then I'm just going to add in the action and do and handle that scheduling. So I'm going to map and pull in that information, and it's going to create a Teams meeting invite for me automatically. And then it's going to respond back to the Copilot with any referenced information. So that's what we have here as far as the actions go. Now, the main pieces of what makes this autonomous, though, as I mentioned, is going to come down to instructions right here and the trigger. So let's look at the trigger first. So as I mentioned, we have the SharePoint list for new employees. So when something is added here, that's when I want this to kick off. So we can just simply add a trigger. We can go to all and we can search across all the thousands of different connectors that we have. For example, I know there's Salesforce ones. We could choose whatever trigger that we want from here and just configure it. Now, the kicker is when we're using a trigger, so I just went and did this for the SharePoint when an item is created connector that we have. But if we look at what's going on behind the scenes, this is actually just creating a Power Automate flow for us. So how this is handling the execution of the event is by creating a flow in Power Automate, since this already supports monitoring for events to happen in our connectors. So here's our trigger in this case with the mapping that we provided of the list and the SharePoint site. And then it's just going to wait for that to execute. It is going to have one action that sends that payload or that response back to our agent so it can finish doing what it needs to do. So the important thing right here is the body message. So this is where we're saying just use the content from the body of this when an item is created trigger, send that whole thing back to our agent so it can finish doing what it needs to do. And we can actually have, depending on what your process is, we can have multiple triggers in a single agent too, which is something that we couldn't do with a flow alone, right? So if we wanted to, as part of the process, have the when a new item is created be the initial kickoff, but then maybe we want to have another trigger for when these events are scheduled that gives a confirmation to the staff that everything has been done for that employee. That could be another trigger that we add just by going through this process again and configuring that. So this right here is really the secret sauce to making it autonomous. Now to use this, another thing I wanted to point out is we need to enable this right here. So you'll see this toggle for orchestration. So the thing that's going to enable us to be able to use a trigger and make our agents autonomous is the generative orchestration. So you do have to have that enabled. And if it's not enabled by default, it should prompt you when you go to add a trigger that you need to turn that on. So this is what's basically telling the agent that, hey, you can be able to autonomously know when to kick things off. Okay, so those are the main pieces there. The final kind of piece of the puzzle is right here, is the instructions. And this is often the hardest part to really get right, is getting thorough instructions. So you need to figure out the right way to prompt your way to detailed instructions to tell the agent what to do. So what I've done here is I usually start with, hey, what are you supposed to do? So you are to organize new employee training. This varies by department, so put in some constraints there. Based off of the user's department, you will select training from a list of available training sessions and then create Teams meetings for the new employee. You must also find a suitable device for the new employee based on the department. And then this is what I found works really well, is to tell it to use the following instructions and just put it in a bulleted kind of number format like I did of exactly what you want it to do. So when a new employee is added, use the IT training knowledge to build a list of required training. Notice again, I'm using single quotes. So anytime I'm referencing knowledge or an action that I've used, you want to scroll down and make sure you get the name that's showing up right here and putting that in single quotes so it knows which one you're referencing. Number two, I wanted to create Teams meetings for each training using the flow that we have in this case, which is the new employee onboarding. And then ensure that the meeting is created on the corresponding weekday. Again, number three, use the business knowledge, select a device. And this is another thing that I did. So I had to kind of play around with this because it wasn't doing exactly as I wanted it to. So you can do things like putting things in bold, in all caps. So you'll notice I did, you must only select the device from this knowledge source because it might try to hallucinate something like another device, not from your data source. So just as something as simple as putting that one statement there and must only in capitalization can really help tweak and make sure you get the right response out of the agent. So I just put in a little bit more detail there. And then if no suitable device is found, don't assume a device. And then finally, this is where I want it to go and call that action to add to that create order request list that we have in SharePoint as well. And I didn't show that before, but this is it. This is the hardware list that we have, where once it does go and procure the device or suggest the device that the employee needs, it will add that to this list so we can then go order it. And you'll notice some more details that I did here as far as the device, like IT employees require a high specification device, whereas sales employees require lower specification. So we can even add in that intelligence to have it dynamically make those decisions of, what specific type of devices people should get. Yeah, and I love the comment there. Yes, you need to tell your agent to pay attention. So you do have to tweak it at times. So in a nutshell, that's really the building blocks of what you need to make up a simple autonomous agent. Now let's test this out. So I'm going to go into our new employee here, and we'll add a new item. All right, so I'll just add one for me. And then for the department, let's see, I'll do something different. We'll say it's sales, and we'll save. So that will kick off our Copilot here. It will take a minute to be able to have that show up. So usually up to a minute is when it polls for new events. And how we test this out, so I haven't published anything yet, but we can make sure everything is working by going to your trigger and clicking this little test button. And this is going to show all recent runs of basically new items being added. And again, can take a minute. So we'll just give it a second here to show the latest run that's going on. Keep refreshing. Can be very impatient at this point. But it will show up, and then we just select it and we click Start Testing, and that will help it get kicked off there. And the cool thing about once it does execute is we'll see a live activity feed of exactly how the agent is thinking and what it's doing. And once I'm done with this, it's just a matter of publishing, and then that flow is just sitting there in the back end to poll every minute for new items, in this case, to be added to that SharePoint list, and that will just automatically kick off the execution of our agent here. Okay, there we go. Finally there. So there's our new run that we just had. So I can select that one, and we will start testing. And this second part of the process could take a minute too, as it thinks through everything and goes and gets the information. So we can tell from this conversation history that the trigger was detected. We can expand that out, and we can see the full payload that in this case was passed in from the flow that we had. So here's all the details about that item that I added. And now here's that conversation, that activity history I was talking about. So it's going and it polled my knowledge sources, and it got some information, and see each of these actions. This is that flow, and it identified, in this case, it looks like 4 different training sessions I need, being in the sales department, and it's going and executing that flow and scheduling the team meetings. Now I can see it thinking, and it's going and checking the knowledge sources again to get a laptop device from that website, and it's creating that hardware request. So totally hands off. I didn't do anything here, and we can see the session is complete. And if we scroll down, there we go. It even gives me a nice message letting me know that everything was done. And now I can just go check to see, did it actually work? So let's start over with in Teams here. I'll just give it a refresh and see if it scheduled those events for me. So I'll go over to my calendar. There we go. Cool. So there are all of those events that map back to that Word document for the sales. So these are all only sales related trainings that I need. So it was able to get my department from that and dynamically pull only the relevant ones for me as a new employee. And if we look at the new hardware requests, let's refresh that. And there we go. So there's everything that I wanted to do. It's suggesting that I get a Surface laptop. There's the price. There's the randomly generated asset tag. And there's the key details that I ask it to put in the description. So that's just a really simple example of what we can do with an autonomous agent. Just a few tips and tricks I want to share with you too before I let you go. One, you might be wondering, a lot of what we saw there is kind of similar to a flow, right? To a cloud flow. So why would I use a Cloudflow versus an autonomous agent. So just a few things here. I'm not going to go over these exhaustively, but one is just the nature of Cloudflows versus autonomous agents. Cloudflows are static, so you really have to script out every step in advance, and you have to update it manually, whereas autonomous agents, as we just saw, are self-directed. Yeah, we have to provide it with the knowledge and the actions and some instructions, but then it can go and make those decisions. They're really adaptive. Cloudflows, on the other hand, are deterministic. They have to have really predictable steps. So that's what makes Cloudflows good for straightforward processes. If you need routine approval processes, say document routing with minimal edge cases, those are still really good use cases for a Cloudflow. Things where you have frequent, repeatable steps, and limited kind of outputs with that, Cloudflows are still going to be the way to go. But if you need something like we just saw where, hey, based off of the department, I need to go and find the right device and have different specifications for that, that's a really good use case because of the adaptive nature, and they can support those on-the-fly classification and reroutings and different levels of certainty. So last thing I want to share with you all is some quick tips. One, this is still very, very new. So my suggestion for you all, if you want to get your hands on this, is to start simple. Think of the most simple use case that you have, try it out, and go from there, and then iterate and test. Each time that you add an action, test to see if it's working, what's it doing. Each time that you change the instructions, test. Just start small and then keep growing and test along the way. The other, if an action isn't working, so if, say, you go try to add the Salesforce action to do something, but it's just not doing what you want it to, you can try wrapping that in a flow. So sometimes an action just might be a little wonky. Again, this is very, very new technology. So you can find better results just wrapping that in a flow and calling it like I did to add those Teams calendar invites. And then finally, as I mentioned, the instructions are the most difficult part to get right, and small changes can have a big impact. So before you go completely reconfiguring everything, just try some small tweaks to your instructions, retest, and try that a few times to see what kind of results you can get. So those are my tips for success. There's not a lot of content right now on autonomous agents as it is so new. We're looking forward to creating more instructions, some great stuff like Ayça and team have created with their Copilot Camp. We want to create equivalent for Copilot Studio and autonomous agents. So be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, I have a video on the community learning channel that has another kind of scenario as well that walks through this that you can reference. So that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Awesome stuff, April. Really, really good clarification on what they are, because I think that's the number one question what everybody is having, autonomous agents. How are they autonomous? How do I do them? What do I need to do? But it's really around the fact that you have those triggers, LLMs, and it's able to understand the incoming messages and then make decisions based on that. And then it comes to be autonomous because it's basically triggering and making decisions based on the content, which is the right way of thinking this. So really, really cool. Thank you for that one. And also just calling out to April's other demo in the community learning channel. It is really good as well for showcasing how to get started and all of that stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you, April. Thank you, Ayça. Brilliant demos today in both of them, both of the sections. Really, really cool demos. Really, really great call. Now, next week, we will have Paolo having a focus on working with topics and actions in the Microsoft Copilot Studio. So what they are, what does it actually do, and do things. And then we have this kind of a special thing, because every now and then, no, that the list of names is not correct. Why do I have a DC Pador? I have no idea why it says DC Pador. It should say Ayça Baş. I apologize, Ayça, on that one. But how is that even possible? Sorry. But we have the special AMA session set up for next Tuesday. Sorry, Ayça, on that one, where we're actually going to focus on AMA. So technically, bring your questions related on which we didn't answer necessarily today, or we haven't answered in the past. Any questions related on agents, and the agents as in custom engine agents, declarative agents, SharePoint agents, and we can talk about what they are capable of doing. And that is on next Tuesday at 8 a.m. We'll start with Paolo, and then we go to the AMA after that. So be prepared for those questions, definitely. But that's on 25th of March, so we'll continue there. Now, in the meanwhile, we do have 2 different community calls happening this week, the Power Platform monthly community call, and then the Viva Connection SharePoint Framework community call on Thursday, Power Platform community call tomorrow. A lot of stuff happening. You can also use the Discord to have a discussion with the community. There's already more than 2,700 members in the Discord server, which is brilliant, and it's growing rapidly as well. So a lot of people are using Discord, so we want to offer this option to engage with other people in the community as well. We also are always looking for feedback. AKMS community calls feedback is the form, so please fill in that one. You like the content, you didn't like the content, you would like to suggest something else, let us know. We do share all of this feedback with our leadership, and your input actually helps us on continuing doing these calls. So if you feel that these calls are useful, please let the leader let us know, so we're able to actually continue these calls in the future as well. But for now, that's it for this call. The recording will be available within 24 hours at Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel, typically a bit faster than that one, and depending on timings and all of that, but 24 hours latest. The next call is on 25th of March, and in the meanwhile, AKMS community calls for other calls, and check out the community assets, which is there's a lot of stuff available. But have a great rest of the week, and thank you one more time, Ayça and April. Brilliant call, brilliant demo. Thank you for everything what you do. And thank you for everybody in the community. Thank you for your input in chat and all of the different assets and channels. But cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.